Money in the Bank, Saturday night, Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. Weirdly enough, so last year I went to London without Money in the Bank tickets in hand and attended SmackDown. This year, I'm attending Money in the Bank for sure with tickets in hand, but I've also got tickets for SmackDown and NXT, two events I won't be going to. So I got tickets for SmackDown and NXT. Unfortunately, they're the same ticket. So to the listeners out there, I can't just give them to you because then you can take it and use my ticket for Money in the Bank as well, because my Money in the Bank ticket came with tickets for both of those events. And if anybody who wants to talk a little negative about WWE, AEW, I know that whole war going on, right?
Yeah.
Well, we've talked before, and I think NXT and AEW are more on the same playing field when it comes to comparing against each other. And for those who are curious, if you're just looking to go to NXT by itself, there's lots of tickets available. It will look probably pretty bad on the non-TV side of things, and you can have tickets for as low as what I last saw, $7. So
wow.
If you want to talk smack about AEW and how cheap tickets are and WWE is hot as can be right now, but when it comes to the NXT part of things, yes, NXT, $7 if you're curious about just going to that on Sunday night. I'd probably be more apt to go if it was a pre-show to Money in the Bank, part of the same day or the day before.
$7? Yeah.
I mean, I already have a ticket. I mean, and that's the problem. I can't even get rid of it, right? Because after I go to Money in the Bank, I can sell the ticket for NXT that, goes with that ticket because they're all as one ticket. But, I mean, what am I going to make? $7? I mean, not even probably, right? If other people are selling $7, I got to try to beat them. So it's kind of a moot point. And it's crazy because I got a free ticket for SmackDown, but I'm going to a concert in the area on Friday night instead. It just happened to come with the SmackDown ticket, but I go to a lot of wrestling.
So what show are you going to see?
I'm going to see City and Color with the band Metric. They're doing a festival. I've seen them a million times, but they do a festival in their hometown every summer or the last couple summers called the Born and Raised Fest because they are from there. And the lead singer does 2 nights of a festival, Friday and Saturday night. One night he does with his band City and Color with a bunch of more alternative bands. And then on Saturday night, he's going to do it with his more rock band, Alexis on Fire, with more rock band like The Used is going to be playing with him on Saturday night. So it's like he does his 2 bands in back-to-back days in his hometown as the headliner with other bands. So doing that on Friday night in St. Catharines, Ontario, right outside of Niagara Falls. And then I'm going to Money in the Bank on Saturday and then be in Toronto all day on Saturday for that. Just a few little drive away from St. Catharines. So I won't be attending SmackDown or even really watching it. And I won't be attending the GCW show. That was also a tempting thing. Because if I was in Toronto, I'd probably be attending GCW in Toronto as well, which will be at the Opera House on Friday night. But nope, not attending those things. I've seen enough SmackDown. Listen. Once in a while, you got to take a break. Last week I was at AEW. I'm going to be at Money in the Bank. I'm going to be at SummerSlam and other stuff. So got to take a break sometimes and go do something other than wrestling. I've been to enough SmackDowns.
Yes,
I know what it looks like. Listen, if there's nothing else to do, I'll definitely be there, right? But, sometimes, you're going to do something else on a summer night. Try to maybe go outside and go to like a music fest or something like that.
Yeah, so live music's never a bad thing. I can't hate you on that. I'll be doing some live music in a couple weeks. So I'm looking forward. It's always good to go check some different things out. Especially bands and artists you like. So I hope
what is the band that you're next on your tour thing to go see?
So for me, it's Cody Jinks and Blackberry Smoke. They're considered more of like Americana. A lot of folks out there.
You say that. I think you just are trying to talk. You're trying to make it so you're not just a country person.
It's real.
Country.
It's more real. It's real country. It's not the pop country like I'm not gonna. I don't want to name any bad names out there, but you guys know the pop country. Not really into the pop country stuff. This is more what they call outlaw country as well. So it's and they have a little bit of a rock sound to them as well. They play some really good instruments. So that's what I'll be doing with the misses.
I will say you did talk to me one time about a gentleman. I think you're the one that mentioned it, Zach Bryan, and I've checked him out. And he's pretty good.
Yeah.
Zach
Bryan's on the list as well. I don't know if you heard about this, not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but he got to hang out with the famous Hawk Tui.
Yes, I knew you were going there because yes, I did see that. That has been all over the world. I'm waiting for LA Knight to change from "Let Me Talk to You" to "Let Me Hawk Tua." But
that's good. Hey, that's pretty good. Maybe you know what? Knowing these days, Hawk Tui could be she could be doing the WWE or AEW stuff soon.
Yeah, she can do something stupid because WWE and the media together, those kind of things. I mean, hey, they're always collaborating together. But Money in the Bank is this weekend. It is the 15th, I believe, pay-per-view standalone Money in the Bank. So it's Money in the Bank, the Raging Climax. If we're following the WrestleMania terminology, I think we should do that for any of these pay-per-views to kind of give it into perspective. You know what I mean? Like with the WrestleMania slogans. You know what I mean? Like Money in the Bank 17, we'll have to say it's Houston. We have a problem. Money in the Bank, I think
it's Yeet in the Bank is what the
well, that's Yeet in the Bank, but I'm giving it the WrestleMania ties to where they fit because it's WrestleMania 15, the Raging Climax, which is a weird name for WrestleMania 15. WrestleMania. So when we get the Money in the Bank, like 22, it'll be the big time. When it'll be Money in the Bank 23, it'll be all grown up. Money in the Bank 25. Oh crap! I'm worried about that one. It's not the 25th anniversary. Don't do that. Money in the Bank 25 will not be. But this year we're at 15. We're so essentially where we were at WrestleMania 1999. We're there with Money in the Bank. But it's crazy. Money in the Bank, the event, is even way older than that. This will be, like I said in our pre-part of the podcast, 31 and 32 respectively matches in Money in the Bank history. And before we get into the card, just a few little factoids, right? So the matches themselves started in 2005 at WrestleMania 21 up till 2009 at WrestleMania. Then we moved on to brand-specific matches starting in 2010. The matches have been joint in 2014 onward, essentially where then you can cash it in for whatever side. And the women's match debuted in 2017. CM Punk is the only person, man or woman, to win it consecutively, which he did in 2008 and 2009. Edge, he held Money in the Bank twice, but one of those times he took it from a Mr. Kennedy and didn't win it the second time around. And that's not the only time somebody has taken it from a winner, because Edge took it from Mr. Kennedy. The Miz took it from Otis during that whole COVID era wrestling that we try to forget. And in the women's world, James Ellsworth, I guess he won it for Carmella in all of that nonsense. Yeah. And the first person to not successfully cash in was John Cena back in 2012. The first person to cash in at WrestleMania, we all know that, Mr. Seth freaking Rollins. That's probably one of the most historic, memorable cash-ins there is. I think the most memorable cash-in was the first. I was there for it. It was awesome. That's back when the Money in the Bank briefcase itself didn't even say Money in the Bank on it. It was just a black briefcase. Carmella, which is crazy enough, is the one to hold the briefcase the longest, 287 days.
Hey,
it's crazy to think.
Who's the? Do you know who the active men's leader in appearances who that will be after this weekend? You know.
And appearances, who that will be? I mean,
Drew McIntyre.
I was going to say he's the only person of a namesake in this upcoming Money in the Bank, right? That
he'll be tied with. He'll be tied for second place with Christian and Dolph Ziggler, and then first place. No surprise here. Kane's done a lot of things for a long time, and then Kofi Kingston, seven appearances. So Drew McIntyre is moving up the list of appearances in this. I mean, we'll get to the match card. I just wanted to give you that fun factoid. Chris Jericho is the brainchild behind that as well.
Chris Jericho, as well as I think it was like Brian Alvarez, who was a writer back in the day in the WWE. But yeah, crazy to think, Chris Jericho is no longer obviously in the WWE. Brainchild behind this match, this event. A lot of people talk about should it return to WrestleMania, this other stuff. I mean, that's stupid talk for other days. I mean, I recently saw somebody talking about should like the Royal Rumble be 2 nights. Just absolute silliness and nonsense. I guess I wouldn't mind if the match moved back to WrestleMania, but at the same time, I don't mind it as a standalone event. I normally like things pretty traditional, but the thing is, we've gone now where Money in the Bank has been its standalone event for so long that it's not necessarily weird anymore. Back when it was its own pay-per-view, yeah, probably I'd have been more on the side of returning to WrestleMania. But now that it's been away from WrestleMania for so long, it's more synonymous, and there's been more Money in the Bank matches not at WrestleMania than at WrestleMania. There's been 4 cash-ins on the night that somebody won it. Kane is actually the only male to do it in 2010. And then in 2018, Alexa Bliss, 2019, Bayley, and in 2022, Liv Morgan cashed in on Ronda Rousey after winning it earlier in the night in Las Vegas. We all know I was there for Austin Theory's cash in, which is the only time anyone cashed in on the United States Championship or a non-world title. And he lost in Scranton, Pennsylvania on a Monday Night Raw. But weirdly enough, he won the United States Championship a few weeks later, so that was a moot point.
Yeah.
And weird stat, I guess. Logan Paul became the first non-contracted WWE performer to participate in Money in the Bank last year. I don't necessarily know because I believe he's not contracted.
Hey, what's a fun fact. So regarding cash-ins of the Money in the Bank briefcase, you maybe people would be thinking Money in the Bank itself that same night would be the number one. The number one answer is actually Raw. Raw's got 8. I'm looking here. 8 cash-ins. Money in the Bank has 5. SmackDown has 4. SummerSlam 3. WrestleMania 2.
SummerSlam, right? Because it's the next pay-per-view on the line, right?
Yeah.
And WrestleMania 2, obviously, including this past year at WrestleMania when Damian Priest cashed in on Drew McIntyre.
Don't you think it's weird though that it's Money in the Bank briefcase and Money in the Bank the pay-per-view itself is not first in that category?
I guess because the idea is that you want to keep that special, right? The whole idea of cashing in the same night, right? You don't want to overdo that story.
But here's I guess my point is a lot of times like we're gonna get to the card in a minute here, but a lot of times the match cards feature heavyweight championship matches, so it later in the night. So to me it makes a lot of sense.
Well, I guess weirdly too is that that TV shows have been more of the spot for the cash in than pay-per-view events,
which is interesting. Right? Yeah,
which is interesting because obviously pay-per-views have a lot of championship matches and a lot of big moments, right? So it's weird that we don't have more not necessarily Money in the Bank pay-per-view, but the one time I went, which was New Year's Revolution, after the main event, or WrestleMania, SummerSlam, those kind of. So it's weird that there hasn't been more cash-ins at the Royal Rumble or whatever, just other events that TV has had the most cash-ins. I guess to make it so that even though Raw's 3 hours long, you sit through it every single week, so that you never know when someone's holding. It's weird that Damian Priest. It seems like just yesterday he had the briefcase. And he cashed it in at WrestleMania, which now is about 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And now we're about to get a new briefcase winner. So, we don't have to go too long without somebody holding out of the briefcase. As we move to the card, it's another beautiful WWE 5-match card. There's lots of stories and lots of competitors, and if you want to go see them, you can see them in Toronto this weekend if you go to SmackDown and the pay-per-view. But if you're going just to the pay-per-view, unlike AEW, you're not guaranteed to see everybody on the roster. Dom's got a great storyline going on. You're probably not going to see much of him. Liv Morgan's got a lot going on. You're not going to see much of her. Bayley, right, who's a champion in the women's world, not going to see much of her. Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, you'll see them on SmackDown, but they won't be a part of this pay-per-view. So, lots of people in the WWE that are pretty big names like Gunther and stuff, but essentially, you're going to go to this pay-per-view hoping, you're not going to see them if you're expecting, because this pay-per-view is solely about the matches that they've advertised. And one thing WWE has done, they haven't strayed away from that. They haven't had these dark matches or other things for the most part. Other people haven't gotten necessarily involved. If they say they got 5 matches, they've been pretty spot on with saying.
And by the way, the start time is 7 o'clock. That means you're probably going to get a full show by 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, so it's not going to be too late, which is strange that they moved these start times up to 7. It's weird. WWE, obviously, my whole childhood was 8 o'clock, and then WrestleMania they moved it to 7 because of the length of WrestleMania, and then since 2012ish, pretty much since 2014 when the WWE Network came around. We've done this thing where it's like they move it to 7 o'clock, and then all the pay-per-views were pretty long, and then after COVID, they moved it back to 8 o'clock when they started shrinking the pay-per-views and moving them to Saturday nights. Now we're back to 7 o'clock. It's confusing, I tell you that much. To be honest with you, so this is the first pay-per-view in prime time for us, not on a Saturday afternoon, since WrestleMania. Because Backlash, Clash at the Castle, and Night of Champions were all Saturday afternoon events overseas in Europe and Asia. And now this is back to the United States, North America, if you will, back in prime time. And like say 7 o'clock, right? WrestleMania was 7 o'clock, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, 7 o'clock, 5-match card. So probably under 3 hours. So imagine going to be leaving the arena just about 10 o'clock, on Saturday night. So 5 matches. Don't expect more. We'll talk about these Money in the Bank matches, first and foremost. I have to say a little disappointed, because I'm going to this one. I got the ticket, unlike last year where the tickets were very expensive. I think the card last year was a little more solid. There was a little more names involved. The men's one, I think, is solid. The women's one is lacking just a little bit, obviously, because there's a lot of big names who aren't involved. But we'll start with the men. Jey Uso, Carmelo Hayes, Andrade, Chad Gable, LA Knight, and Drew McIntyre. LA Knight, he was a big favorite to win it last year. It's crazy because when he was in it last year, there was nobody more over than LA Knight. And I thought by the time we'd get to this year, he'd be like champion by now. But here we are. He's essentially in the same spot. If not, he's very popular, but I don't think he's as popular as he was last year.
Yeah, he's kind of like plateaued.
Yeah, he's kind of plateaued because last year going in the Money in the Bank, there was nobody hotter than LA Knight.
Yeah.
He was the loudest pop in that arena in London last year. But, obviously Jey Uso's on the poster for this thing. Drew McIntyre, he has vowed to win it and cash it in the same night. So what are your predictions?
Chad Gable's in there as well. You never know.
Gable's in there. I wonder, obviously, what the deal, are we going to have some shenanigans either during this match with some of the outside people involved that don't like, let's say, the LA Knights of the world, the Logan Paul, the Otis of the world who don't like Chad Gable, the CM Punks who don't like Drew McIntyre. I mean,
we're going to see some shenanigans for sure.
Yeah. Who was it that we just saw on Raw, right? Giving crap to Carmelo Hayes even, right? So, there's a bunch of people who are in this match. You got to pretty much be watching their back.
Who's your favorite? Who do you got?
Jey Uso. Maybe you've got to watch his back from Jimmy Uso, right?
That's possible.
My favorite is Drew McIntyre. I have a feeling Drew McIntyre is going to win. Drew McIntyre is going to try to cash it in later. Like he said, CM Punk, he's going to veer his ugly head. So we'll have Logan Paul essentially cost LA Knight. We'll have Otis cost Chad Gable. Drew McIntyre will win it, try to cash it in, and CM Punk is going to ruin that for him. That's my predictions for this.
Yeah, I mean, you're not. I think we're pretty much in agreement. I think Drew McIntyre is the favorite as well. I think you're spot on with that because I don't think he's going to be the champion. I just don't see it because CM Punk and him have a date coming up here soon enough, which is SummerSlam. I think they're going to do a big match at SummerSlam. So I don't think they're going to put the strap on Drew McIntyre. So, I think he wins, but I do think he tries to cash in. CM Punk gets involved. It's his huge thing again. They're going to keep building some extra steam for SummerSlam, and then we'll see it pop off at SummerSlam eventually.
Because remember, Gunther is going to go for whoever wins the championship match. So if Drew McIntyre won the championship, he's not facing Gunther at SummerSlam. You know what I mean? So even the idea of him winning and then facing CM Punk for the championship, at SummerSlam or something, I don't think that's really a possibility for the fact that Gunther is in the wings at SummerSlam and he's facing, one of either Damian Priest or Seth Rollins, not Drew McIntyre. So we move on. And Jey Uso, I think he's a heavy favorite. I mean, he's on the poster. He's a main event guy. We talk about people who've plateaued. I think he's a heavy favorite as well because, he's main event Jey Uso. So, how can he not be involved?
And by the way, he's, here's the thing I'll add to that though. You mentioned a moment ago about LA Knight being on fire and like everyone's like assuming he's going to win last year. it kind of feels the same way with Jey Uso. He's so over right now. Like he's on that same trajectory as what LA Knight was especially with the pop and with the fans last year. So I feel like we're gonna get swerved on this one. I feel like they're building it for Jey Uso, and I feel like they're gonna say, yeah, he's not gonna win, and then they're gonna give it to Drew McIntyre. That's what I think.
I mean, Andrade, that would be quite the push for him. We talked about how since his return at the Royal Rumble, they've kind of fallen off a little bit with him. I mean, so I think him winning would be a very big deal.
I think Wyatt 6 more so than Otis gets involved with Chad Gable.
I mean, with Jey Uso though too, because remember we saw on Raw they talked about Jey Uso stealing the Fireflies.
That's what I'm thinking too. Like
a lot of shenanigans possible in this matchup.
Gonna be interesting, and you actually make a good point with that too, where maybe it's not Wyatt 6 over Chad Gable. It could be Wyatt 6 costing Jey Uso because of the whole stealing of the Fireflies and all that stuff that was mentioned on Raw this past week by, I want to say it was Chad Gable that mentioned that.
When you talk about people cashing in at Money in the Bank, right, the pay-per-view itself, well, one thing that does prevent that on many occasions, could very well prevent that on this occasion, is where's the matches in the lineup, right? So, like, Drew McIntyre says he's going to win and cash in that night. Well, So Drew McIntyre essentially tipped WWE's hand in the sense of saying that's not your main event, right? Because that wouldn't even be able to be possible if the Damian Priest-Seth Rollins match opens the card and they take off, right? So if that was to happen, that wouldn't even be possible. I would say, a real interesting thing, but, really out of left field would be Drew McIntyre. If Damian Priest and Seth Rollins happened early in the night and Drew McIntyre cashed in on like Cody Rhodes, won that championship and then set up Drew McIntyre versus CM Punk for that championship at SummerSlam. But again, where would that leave Cody Rhodes? He's got to have an opponent. If he lost the championship, he would definitely be next in line to defend it against, a rematch, that kind of thing. So yeah, I imagine, I don't know if the men's opens up the show, but I think the way I'm looking at the card right now could easily be how it goes. And I'm looking at it with that being number one, right? Number two, I guess you'd have to have we're not going to have two Money in the Banks in a row. So number two, obviously Money in the Bank women's match. This is the one I think lacks a little of that star power. There's no Jade Cargill. There's no Bianca Belair.
I'm okay with it though.
There's no Becky Lynch. Who else are we missing out on here, from a big name perspective?
Well, Charlotte Flair, obviously.
But she's kind of out right now. I'm just looking at the people who are like active and involved. And we talk about winning it 2 years in a row, right? Io Sky, she's in this match, right? She could possibly win it 2 years in a row. We got Chelsea Green.
That'd be an upset of the century. I think that'd be an upset.
Lyra Valkyria, she would obviously be an underdog. Tiffany Stratton, she's definitely in the upper echelon of favorites. Naomi is definitely, I think, the favorite to win this. And Zoe Stark, who got that last spot.
See, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I think Lyra's gonna win it. They're pushing Lyra pretty good. She's getting pretty over with the fans. Like, she gets a better reaction than most of the names in this match. So I think WWE is going to listen to that. I mean, she's moving her way up pretty quickly through her since her debut from NXT. For me, she's the odds-on favorite in my opinion. To me, I don't think Io Sky is going to repeat. I think Chelsea Green is just in there to fill the spot. No offense to Chelsea Green. I think it's going to come down to three names: Lyra, Tiffany Stratton, and Naomi. But I do think at the end of the day, I think Lyra wins.
This is one of those matches where there's definitely people in there to fill the spots, but you have big shoes to fill. Chelsea Green can just fill the spot in a battle royal all day. But this is a ladder match, and this is an exciting match, and you try to want to have the best spots and all that stuff that goes with it. So some of these people, like a Chelsea Green, I really would love. I want to see them deliver. I want to see them do things that make me impressed, and or then know in the future that they could be contenders. So this match is going to go a long way for Chelsea Green of determined, because if she can make a good showing, win or lose, if she can make a good showing in a match where she can do some aerial stunts and she can do some stuff off the ladder, she can take some big bumps, well, then I'm interested in seeing her, in these world title matches. Because if she's not going to essentially be able to be up there with the Jade Cargills in a sense of, I feel that she is a real formidable foe for Jade Cargill or Nia Jax or Bianca Belair, or these champions out there, then I'm not really that interested in her being in a match like this. The Royal Rumble, right? You need bodies, and that's obviously everybody looks similar in that. That's easy to do. But like in something like this, like you got to perform, right? You can't just fill out the spot as just being a wrestler, right? You got to be able to perform and make it entertaining, because it's not just about who wins the match, but just like the Royal Rumble, we're interested in the Royal Rumble not just because of who's going to win it, but because we want to see the match itself. So if this match is going to suck, because of the people that are in it, then I don't care who wins. I want this match to be entertaining. So I hope the names that are in there are, focused on more, not just, hey, Lyra Valkyria is going to win it. Let's just make her look good. You got to make yourselves look good as well in this match and be, formidable in this match, because it's a big spot. As we move on to the Intercontinental Championship, Sami Zayn, who's the champion, steps away from his matches against Chad Gable and that kind of story for a while, and is a new opponent, Braun Breaker. Interesting match. I keep saying Seth. I mean Sami. Sami Zayn, he's your Intercontinental Champion, taking on Braun Breaker. A big spot for Braun Breaker here. Sami Zayn got a big weekend. It's not in his hometown or anything like that, his home country. He's got a big comedy show he's going to do on the 4th of July in Toronto as part of the kickoff to this whole weekend in Toronto. But is he leaving as still the Intercontinental Champion, or is Braun Breaker going to be your new IC champion after Money in the Bank?
I think Braun Breaker is going to be your new IC champ. I think he is. I think he's due now. I think he's been on the main roster long enough, and I think he's getting over with the fans. I mean, the fans are doing the barking and stuff and all that. So like, it's clear that they're going to put him in a prominent position, and I think the best way for him to get in a prominent position early on in his main roster career is to beat somebody as big, as somebody who's, as well known as Sami Zayn for the strap. So to me, Braun Breaker's leaving. He's leaving Canada and Money in the Bank with that Intercontinental Championship.
Well, he won't be leaving just yet, because he's got to go to Raw in Ottawa on Monday night.
Leaving Toronto, excuse me.
Leaving Toronto as champion, going to Ottawa with the championship.
Which Ottawa's actually close to camp. So if it worked out right in a different direction, I might have had to make a trip to Ottawa. But that's neither here nor there. But yes,
Ottawa's never hosted a pay-per-view, and if it does, I will definitely be at it. That is a very close, not a very close location, but from very easy to get to. Toronto and Ottawa are like night and day difference when it comes to massive sized cities. Ottawa is more of that, city that you're used to just being able to park outside the arena and walk in, and it'd be quick and easy, versus Toronto is a major metropolitan city. That's a little more of a thing, a little more of a traffic-y thing. But either way, yes, obviously, if Ottawa ever hosts a pay-per-view, I will be there. I've been there for a pay-per-view, just not WWE. It was an Impact Bound for Glory pay-per-view, which was there, weirdly enough. But hey, it's like I said, it's close enough.
If Ottawa gets pay-per-view for WWE, I might have to book.
They never have, which is weirdly enough, because I've looked at the history of WWE pay-per-views, and you wouldn't believe it, but including like the In Your House days, there are not a lot of cities in North America that you would think of that haven't hosted a pay-per-view. I mean,
Ottawa
just
hasn't.
New York alone, New York, Albany, Rochester, Syracuse, and Buffalo, right? The only city in the state of New York or I guess two cities that you can think of that are even cities that you might not have even heard of if you're out of New York. Binghamton and Utica have never hosted pay-per-views, but like that's it. Like I said, Rochester, Syracuse, they've even hosted pay-per-views. So, and in Canada, I can tell you the cities that have hosted pay-per-views are Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, Winnipeg, Montreal, Toronto, Hamilton. They've all hosted pay-per-views. So yeah, Ottawa's like the biggest city in Canada that has not hosted a pay-per-view. There's no city bigger than that.
I think they'll get one eventually.
I don't know. I mean, they're talking about getting a new arena for the hockey team, but I guess it is one of those cities that it's a difficult city to draw on for sports, for a lot of things. It's a very white collar city. It's not a city known for the nightlife. It's not a city known for that, because it's a very government. It's a very government city. It's not like Washington D.C., which is a much bigger city. So it's like I guess it's like I said, it's a major city because they have like an NHL team. But even in the NHL world, where NHL is king in Canada, they didn't get an NHL team outside of back 100 years ago till 1993, because they've had teams come and go in like the early part of the 1900s. As just like it's just not that major city, even being in Canada. Like Quebec City is another one that kind of sits in that sense of like it's a known city and it's a decent sized city, but it's not it's not like a huge population. It's not really close to other cities, I guess. I mean, it's close to Montreal and Toronto and stuff in theory, but it'd just be kind of harder to draw for like a big pay per view. Even Impact learned that because I went to Bound for Glory there, and it was just like
Yeah.
not the biggest crowds I've ever seen. We move on to one of, I guess we'd say, the co-main events. Match that we saw pretty much built right after the first match on Clash at the Castle when Cody Rhodes defended the title against AJ Styles. And it's Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, and Kevin Owens in a six-man tag against the Bloodline. Now, we don't know which three, right? Because you got Solo, Tama, Tonga, and Jacob Fatu. So you don't know necessarily which three of those are going to be representing the Bloodline.
Who would you guess are your three?
I'm going to guess it's, seemingly enough, if the storyline is we don't know which three, then I'm going to guess it's Tama, Tonga, and Jacob. And Solo, who we saw and the whole group turn on Paul Heyman recently, right? Who's letting this power really get to his head.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, right? He's going to kind of sit back and kind of be like a Roman Reigns and let his henchmen, do the bidding.
I'm going to go in a different direction. I think Solo's going to be in the match. If I had to pick somebody that's not going to be in the match, I would have to say Jacob Fatu. I think Jacob, because I think they're gonna delay his push a little bit. I just think he'll be the odd guy out for now.
I just feel like Solo right now, he's on this big power trip. Now, I guess the question I have for you, right, and obviously it all depends on where the match sits on the card. If this is a main event, like the final match of the night,
yeah,
maybe something, right? But do we see anything like, Roman Reigns making a return? Maybe with Paul Heyman at his side, because I feel like Paul Heyman's obviously not going to be with the Bloodline heading into this match. Do we see any other Bloodline members? Zilla Fatu, I don't think he's making a join the Bloodline anytime soon.
He's not ready.
Yeah, he's still under, he's still got a lot of GCW matches that he's currently booked for all summer long. Yeah. So, yeah, what do we see?
I don't see a Civil War thing coming yet.
Okay.
So I think I think it's best at this stage of the game to draw it out just a little bit, especially with everything that happened. Obviously Roman's father passed away. I just want to shout out to the family. Yeah. So I mean it's one of those things. I'd be surprised if he's going to come back right now because obviously he just lost his father. So I think that's part of it, and I think he shows up. I mean, SummerSlam's not that far away, really. So
less than a month, or about 1 month, yeah, less than a month.
I mean, I could see that. I could see him randomly just showing up on a SmackDown and just tearing it up.
It's crazy because I think around WrestleMania time, the rumors were that it was going to be like a Rock versus Cody at SummerSlam, and here we are, just a month away. And I know Rock takes his time off, and but hey, if that was the case, you got to start building it like now, right? And, if some Roman's been off for quite a while now since WrestleMania. So, people had a lot of expectations. SummerSlam's a big event. It's in a stadium, right? I don't think they could put this card out or respectively put this card out for SummerSlam. So, you got to bring out the big names. And if it's going to be Roman returning or it's going to be The Rock returning, because it is like, the WrestleMania of the summer, you got to see it sooner than later. And like I said, I think it all depends really, where this match sits on the card. If this match sits in the main event, I maybe you could see something big. If it's like the second match on the card, then yeah, I'm not seeing a return for Rock or Roman in this match. But Damian Priest, Seth Rollins, last chance match for the World Heavyweight Championship. If Priest wins, Rollins will never challenge for the World Heavyweight title again. I don't know if that means he's moving over to SmackDown or not, but if Seth freaking Rollins wins, Damian Priest is leaving the Judgment Day. And again, we talk about shenanigans. We talk about all this other stuff with all these other matches. Finn Balor and Damian Priest. Do we finally see the split up there and the setup for their match?
That's a good question because I've been on the fence with this, over the last couple weeks because I feel like there's seeds being planted. I'm gonna lean in a different direction. I think the Judgment Day. I think they stay together. I keep going back and forth. I figure out a way. I think Seth Rollins doesn't win the match. I changed my mind on that. I think I've been going back and forth. I think Seth is going to be out of the title picture for the time being.
Seth loses, he's out of the title picture. Now is he out of the? Is he still going to be on Raw every single week, but out of the title picture?
That's a good question. I think.
Do you see Seth winning and Drew McIntyre cashing in on him?
That's a possibility. I don't think Judgment Day is breaking up yet. I think they're going to break up when Rhea gets back because I think Rhea's going to tear things up when she gets back. That's just what my gut's telling me at this point. When Rhea is ready to come back and when she's cleared, ready to rock and roll, I think she is going to be the catalyst that just does the divorce of the Judgment Day. I think I keep going back and forth on this, but I think that's where it goes, and I think. The whole thing with Drew McIntyre, I think he tries to cash in on Damian Priest, and then CM Punk says, nah, you're not going to win. So that's where I'm at.
There's a last chance match for the NXT North American Championship at Heatwave on Saturday night. Alma Fema, who is the champion, taking on Wes Lee. And if Fema wins, Wes Lee cannot challenge for the title as long as Fema is champion. That's a little less important because that not just obviously NXT, the goal is to move out of NXT eventually, especially too if you're in the North American world, you want to move up the ranks. Yeah. But also as long as FEMA is the champion, which isn't a forever thing, right? So that's not even like saying much if Wesley loses. He just has to wait a little bit for Oba Fema to lose that belt. The other two big matches at Heatwave this week, Roxana Perez, who's the champion for the women, taking on Lola Vice, and the main event, which is Ethan Page, Shawn Spears, Javon Evans, and Trick Williams, who is the champion. Any predictions, let's say, on that main championship match? And Trick Williams, Javon Evans, Ethan Page, and Shawn Spears.
I don't know why, but I feel like Trick's still going to win. I think he's over like Grover right now, and I think he's the kind of guy that could hold on to that belt for a while. I'd be surprised if Shawn Spears won. Not because I don't like Shawn Spears. I just don't think if anybody's going to get the belt out of that, I would say Ethan Page would probably be the next up, in my opinion. I honestly just don't see Trick Williams losing right now. I just don't.